This is Dr. Tanya Jenkins, Executive Director at Quest Charter Academy, and I wanted to be able to go over with families some very pertinent information that is coming out around the place and space that we find ourselves in. We want to be able to share that information with you and then also share with you what we are doing to make sure that your students are still going to be able to receive instruction from their teachers on a daily basis. With this COVID-19 emergency, there are many mandates that are coming out to us as school officials, and I wanted to share just a few of those with you so that you understand a bit more of what we are dealing with. And then after that, I would like to go into sharing with you Quest's plan to get equipment into your students' hands so that we can begin our e-learning plan. And then finally, we will talk to you about other considerations and resources that are available to families at this time. The Illinois State Board of Education is one of the main sources that we use to pull our knowledge and information from to guide us along our way as we make our plans. And the state board acknowledges for all of us that our students, families, schools, and even districts are very diverse. And in being diverse, it's very different for us to be able to have accommodations to support each and every family and each and every learner as we move through this process. So in order to meet those needs, they have given us some leeway to make decisions based off of what works best for our communities. We want to make sure that we're making decisions that will impact our communities and families positively and help with moving us forward for students' education. We are going to be moving into the remote rather learning days, and remote learning versus virtual days e-learning is a bit different. So when you're doing remote learning days, I've highlighted some things that make sure that we're clear about. And so with remote learning, students must conduct instruction, or schools rather must conduct their instruction remotely. And also, once we declare that we are using those remote learning days, we understand from our guidelines that all of those days do count as attendance days for students from pre-K through 12th grade. This information is important, parents, as we realize that students need to be in attendance at these remote learning days in order to get their learning to occur in this new format that we are in. If students are in these remote learning days with their teachers, we are able to calculate that as a part of our length of school term, meaning we do not have to change our school calendar because we are using these days as instructional days. Also, each school or district can use 5 remote learning planning days, either consecutively or in separate increments, to develop, review, or amend its remote learning day plan. Remote learning planning days shall be deemed pupil attendance days, as I stated, for calculation of the length of our school term. This means that we are in that phase right now where we are doing our planning and preparing for students to go remote. We've been on spring break, so none of those days counted against us. And now that teachers are coming back on the 31st, we will begin to do our planning days as of April 1st. Each remote learning day plan has to have some very specific things included in it. I have listed here for you all of those things that must be contained within a plan. Letter A, or number 1. The plan must allow for all students in the school or school district to be able to receive instruction remotely. Letter B, when applicable, a requirement that the remote learning days activities has is that it must reflect the state learning standards. And so we are making sure that number 1, all of our students will have access 2 equipment, and number 2, that we are still adhering to what we know best, which is to connect learning to our state standards. Also, these plans need to provide for students a way to confer or talk with their educator as necessary. So as you will see later in our discussion of Quest Plan, you'll see that educators and students will be able to see each other in their remote learning format. Letter D. There are still specific requirements for all of our student populations, including our special education students, our English language learner students, and our homeless students. So all of these populations of students must be included in the plan, and they are. And finally, transitions from remote learning to an on-site learning needs to be in place once the state superintendent declares that remote learning days are no longer deemed necessary. So what is Quest's plan with all of these things in place now? Well, we are doing our plan in phases. Phase 1 begins April 1st through April 7th, where students are able to work on packets. Packets are mailed to each family, and each family has their students' packets within that mailing. Students are expected to complete those packets and to keep them in the Ziploc bag that we are providing. And when students are able to come back to school, we will be collecting those packets to see what work was done during this time frame between April 1st and April 7th. And again, those packets don't take away from teachers teaching, but they are activities and assignments that still show us whether or not a student is understanding the content of their grade level that teachers have prepared for them. So parents, it is really important that you keep up with those packets with your students and that those are able to be returned once school is back in session. Starting with April 6th and April 7th, we will be delivering devices and getting those distributed out to families. And so it's very important that you pay attention to the information that will be coming out by robocall and that will also be on our website for device distribution. I can tell you that we are going to a format that allows you to pick your time that you want to be able to come and get your devices. And when you do come to get your equipment, you will be able to pick up all students that you have in your family at one time. So again, please look for the information that spells that out for you specifically on our website, and you will be receiving a robocall closer to the end of this week to share with you how to go on and pick out your time slot that you would like to come and pick up your students' devices. That's for April 6th and April 7th. And we will be distributing devices from 8:30 until 3 o'clock on each of those days. And parents, you have a choice of when you will come to pick up that equipment that will be in both schools' gyms. On April 8th, we then begin our remote learning, and that will go for as long as needed until we are told that we are back in regular school session. So phase 2 again means April 1st through April 7th. Teachers will be available to students from 8:30 to 1:30, and that's Wednesday through the following Tuesday. Students, again, are to work on their packets that they receive in the mail, and they can email their teachers with questions and get responses from their teachers. I encourage you to have your students work with their teachers to make sure they are able to answer any questions that they find or arise on the packets, and just to touch base with their teachers and to make sure that they are all set up and ready to go when it's time to start the e-learning on April the 8th. Teachers during this time will be planning their lessons, preparing to start to teach via the um, device method, and they will also be emailing their students through their office hours. And they will be keeping a log of which students they speak to and how they try to get a hold of your child. So please make sure that's a two-way communication, that your student is working with the teacher and that the teacher is working with your child. As I said, for the distribution of equipment, April 6th is going to be the middle school from 8 until 3 o'clock. But again, we will send out very specific information about how this is going to work so that we can keep our social distancing correct. If you have students at the middle school, this is really for middle school distribution, but if you have high school students as well, you'll be able to pick a slot online that allows you to come to the middle school to get your middle school students equipment and then go over to the high school to get your high school students equipment. Then on the 7th, it is really the high school distribution day. But if you have middle school students, after you pick up your high school child's equipment, you will be able to then come back over to the middle school and get the other students' equipment that day as well. But I really, really encourage you to go online and find the time that works best for you and pick a slot for you to be able to come and get your equipment so that we know who will be joining us on which day and which time. Please make sure that you understand that because we need to keep the social distancing separate like we should, only so many families will be allowed into the area at one time. You will get more information on that in your robocall, and we will post the times on our website and on Facebook. Our administrators will be handling that distribution along with the support of Elite and our chief of police. So again, we will have a skeletal staff here. So that's why it's important that you go online and select a time so we know who's coming when and that we're ready to have you sign off on the equipment that you will need. In phase 3, we begin our actual remote learning or our e-learning. April 8th starts that date, and we will proceed until we are guided back into returning to our buildings. In this phase, teachers begin their remote learning with students. We are using the meet.google.com, and you'll get all of this again in writing, and you'll be able to see it on all of our Facebook pages and website areas so that you don't have to capture this right now. This is just for your information. You can see that once we begin phase 3, everyone should have received their child's equipment. Everyone should be ready to go to work. Students in 6th grade through 9th are very used to this because they've been in Summit Learning and they know exactly how to go into the platform and use their equipment. Others may have to do a bit of a tutorial, and we will have those tutorials online as well. The daily schedule will be from Monday through Thursday, and we will go from 8:30 until 1:30. Lunch will be every day from 12 to 12:30, and each class will last approximately 40 to 45 minutes with a 10-minute break in between. Again, you will receive the schedule in many formats, so not to worry, you'll know when your child should be logging on. And your child knows their schedule, and we've tried to adhere to that same schedule so that they do not get confused about where they are going to log in to which teacher's classroom. The one thing that you need to help students understand is that we will allocate Mondays and Wednesdays as A days. Mondays and Wednesdays will always be A days, and Tuesdays and Thursdays will always be B days. This helps us to keep students straight with whose classroom they should be logging into. They will not be able to get into a classroom virtually that is not their designated time in the day. So, for example, if your child has English in Core 1, Block 1, Period 1, whatever your child calls it, that would be the time frame that they would go in and log into their English teacher's classroom. That's the only time they would be able to get into that classroom. Then, if they have math, second period, second block, second core, then they would log into their math teacher's link to make sure they're in that classroom for their second period of the day. So students are following their usual schedule and logging in to be virtually with their teachers throughout their day from 8:30 till 1:30. On Fridays, the day looks a little bit different. On Friday, we will be using that as a planning day for teachers to do their lesson planning for the following week. And teachers will also be using that time to do their mentoring with your child. So teachers will set up a schedule whereby they are able to actually talk to your child by phone or by email to make sure that if your child has any specific questions, they'll be able to get that answered through the Friday periods that we will be holding in case they don't get those questions answered throughout the regular class periods Monday through Thursday. And also we'll be able to do some tutoring online for students that still need it and request it. Again, our administrators will be able to go over these daily period schedules from today uh, for you, and we will place all of those schedules on the website. There are other topics that I know will come up, and this will continue to be a way for us to communicate as we move forward. Some of those other topics include, how long are we going to be out of school? What do we do if we have to do this until May? We don't have any of those answers yet. So right now, our phase 3 plan of teachers working with your child to continue their learning process is going to be running from April 8th until we get word otherwise. We will continue to update you weekly so that you know where we are and what we're doing. So for now, just stay positive and know that our plan is geared to help students have success. They just need your support in being able to log on daily and partake in the conversations that will be happening with their teachers. All state assessments have been suspended for the year. So you can help students to understand, as teachers will, that we don't have to take state tests this year, and the state is still trying to determine how we will assess what students have learned and gained over the year. But for now, we know we will not be taking the Illinois Assessment of Readiness. Also, curriculum. Students will receive instruction to support grade level growth. This means that now the focus has turned more to what do students need to know to be able to be promoted to the next grade. Students need to be able to have certain skill sets, and our teachers are dedicated to making sure that those students that are in their classes have those specific skill sets. So part of this planning period that we need is to take a look at what's still left to be taught and how do we need to get that out to your child so that we can ensure that your child continues to grow in this period of them being out of the real classroom and into a virtual classroom. Concerns around grading. Again, I have to say to you that we just need to be focused on your student continuing to do work because we know that we've been guided to say that grading is not going to be able to harm a student. It needs to be only used to support a student and for a student to be able to show us what they have learned and reflected in their growth. So grading is not something that parents you need to be as concerned about. We just really need to make sure that students are still participating in the work that is being provided. Again, for our special education and ELL families, our students and teachers will continue to be able to work together as they usually do. Teachers will follow their usual schedule, so if they are in a room with your child, usually throughout the day, they will be in the classroom virtually with your child when we are doing this instruction. As far as IEPs and annual reviews being set up, more information is forthcoming on those items, and they are still going to occur. We just have to wait to see how that schedule will be adjusted to meet the needs of all of our students. Meals still are provided for breakfast and lunch. And as you know, parents, our students are able to go to any of Peoria Public Schools feeding sites and receive their meals there for breakfast and lunch. And we are doing the lunch period, as we stated, from 12 to 12:30. So we know that you're able to grab those meals to go. And if you could please help with having your child having those meals ready to eat between 12 and 12:30 so that they are not missing any of their instructional time throughout the day. And again, those meals have been being provided even over spring break, and they will continue to be provided. If you have questions around that, again, please be sure to email your school principals, and they will have answers for you uh, starting on March 31st, which is tomorrow. Technology needs, if you have technology needs, once you receive your equipment, you are able to have your child go through their mentor, their teacher mentor, and that teacher mentor will help you get to the right person to get the help that you need in getting any technology needs taken care of. We know that together we make a difference. This has been a lot of information. We wanted to put it in this format, though, so that you could go back and take a look at it as you need it, take notes, get some of your questions answered, hopefully. And we, again, will be doing these weekly so that you can stay caught up with the newest information that we're receiving and making sure that we are answering questions for you as they come up. I look forward to hearing from you. If you need anything, you'll be able to again send me an email at tjenkins@questpeoria.org or sending anything to your principals as you're used to doing as well through email. So please send us any questions or concerns that you have directly to your child's principal or to me directly. Again, thank you for working with us to continue your child's learning.